I'm going to cite a little of the background of the history to the most recent event in Irish history to be called the Troubles. Here's a short passage from Britannica. The story of the Troubles is inextricably entwined with the history of Ireland as a whole and, as such, can be seen as stemming from the first British incursion on the island, the Anglo-Norman invasion of the late 12th century, which left a wave of settlers whose descendants became known as the Old English. Thereafter, for nearly 8 centuries, England and then Great Britain as a whole would dominate affairs in Ireland. Colonizing British landlords widely displaced Irish landholders. The most successful of these, plantations, began taking hold in the early 17th century in Ulster, the northernmost of Ireland's 4 traditional provinces, previously a centre of rebellion, where the planters included English and Scottish tenants as well as British landlords. Because of the plantation of Ulster, as Irish history unfolded, with the struggle for the emancipation of the island's Catholic majority under the supremacy of the Protestant ascendancy, along with the Irish nationalist pursuit of Home Rule and then independence after the island's formal union with Great Britain in 1801, Ulster developed as a region where the Protestant settlers outnumbered the indigenous Irish. Unlike earlier English settlers, most of the 17th century English and Scottish settlers and their descendants did not assimilate with the Irish. Instead, they held on tightly to British identity and remained steadfastly loyal to the British Crown. This short extract from Britannica should show how rooted in history the Troubles are. Had I cited more of the article, it would have touched upon issues such as the Rebellion of 1798, the Home Rule crisis and the 1916 Easter Uprising among numerous others. To even begin to understand the roots of the Troubles in Ireland, it is essential to have some knowledge of these events. However, lazy comparisons using the Troubles are often made to other events. All such comparisons are at best of limited use, as each situation is an event unique unto itself. However, it is possible to look at events and see general patterns, but using the Troubles as a comparator to show how the arrival of recent immigrants in a Europe state can cause problems is a comparison likely to run into particular issues. For the next section of this presentation, I am indebted to the Kane website. I have included a link to that website underneath the description for this video. The peak of violence during the Troubles is generally seen to be 1972, although it was not the peak for financial damage, which is something we will return to. Nearly 500 people died in 1972. There were constant tensions between Britain and the Republic of Ireland during this period and slightly earlier. When people press gang warfare in states like Sweden into comparison to this, it looks emotive. I mention Sweden because one particular channel has chosen to compare the Troubles to what is occurring in Sweden currently. I'll discuss that analogy as we go on and its limitations. Before we move on, I'm sure viewers have noted the large number of pictures of historical events in this presentation. That is not accidental and is designed to stress the depth of history behind the Troubles. Turning to comparisons of the Troubles to Sweden, I cite from the channel History Debunked. There are now as many bombings and shootings in Sweden as there were at the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. There was a time when Sweden was a byword for liberal and progressive attitudes and a relaxed lifestyle. This all changed in the 1990s, when they decided that immigration should be encouraged to their country. Originally presented by Simon Webb on the 5th of September 2023. The Troubles are rooted in immigration. However, it is arguably the immigration that occurred during the plantation of Ulster, an event organized by the English monarchy. Sweden has a history all of its own, and attempting to compare issues with recent immigration there to the Troubles seems to be done purely to generate emotion, and the comparison to a conflict that involved terrorism seems deliberate. The comparison also fails as all sides in the campaign engaged in violence, often of the most heinous kind. Torture was used by both the British and Irish. It was the financial impact of the bombs in London that did huge damage that caused matters to slowly move towards some sort of settlement, as the Bishopsgate bomb is estimated to have caused upwards of £500 million of damage. Mr. Webb talks of Sweden experiencing violence similar to the north of Ireland at the height of the Troubles. Anyone who checks such websites as Kane or lived through the era will know this is highly emotive as a comparison. The root causes for violence in each situation are very different, and lazy man down pub attempts to draw analogies are unhelpful in understanding such events. With that said, Simon is quite right to note there are issues that arise with migration, and I do not pretend these do not exist. However, blame rests on both sides in these situations, I would argue. I would actually agree with him that at times a rather naive and fluffy view of the reality of disparate groups existing in societies has been present in regard to such events. Also, there is no excuse for the violence and gang warfare. However, I do not view such gang warfare as something inherent to people due to their genetic or ethnic heritage. Gang warfare also occurred on a large scale during the Troubles and after and involved members from both sides. You will not find too many examples of Muslims or Black IRA or UVF members so plainly other forces were driving that violence than genetic inheritance. If utilizing analogies for comparison, it is always wise to be wary of the inbuilt limits of these, especially when comparing different nations.